Okay, the next step of this exercise is to add some color enhancement with some watercolors. For this, you will need your piece to be totally dry. You'll need a set of watercolors either from the second set of cabinets or a set that you established the day before by squeezing some tubes out into a smaller palette. They need to dry overnight before you can use any tube watercolors. You'll need a fresh container of water, a clean palette for mixing, and then you'll need an assortment of watercolor brushes. So I have a 00 round, a 4 round, which I used before. I have a 4 filbert, a 12 round, and a 1-inch flat brush. Now what I'm going to do is mix some glazes of watercolor, meaning that they're going to be thinner washes of watercolor because the value is already established by the gray scale that I added earlier. So these are really just going to be this is really just going to be an enhancement that I place over top and just a way to accent the piece. While gray washes bring value to the piece, watercolor will bring saturation through the addition of color. It's an ideal medium to work over the gray washes because it's translucent and the gray washes will stay in place. They won't move with the addition of the watercolor because they're permanent. I've selected to use a split complementary color scheme of yellow, blue-violet, and red-violet. I chose this color scheme because there was different light sources hitting the can. I chose to use the blue-violet colors more so in the places where the window light was hitting the can. I chose to use the yellow in the places where the artificial indoor light was hitting the can. And in between, I chose to use the yellow, or rather the red-violet, to show where the two different weight balances were hitting the can. I felt like this worked well. I would encourage you to inspect your object and see if there is a color scheme that you could apply when you're adding your addition of color. Because they're just accent colors, I would look to see that you can limit your colors as opposed to using all of the colors, because this really is only meant to be accents. The project should be more about the line and the value with just an addition of color. As I place the washes, I just kind of loosely go over everything. I'm okay with covering anything that needs to be white later on because after this step I will be adding gouache, and the gouache is the part where I can really bring out the highlights. At the end, I just added a nice big wash of color to kind of add some background and some color to the foreground of the piece, and just kind of to unify it a little bit more and bring the piece together. Just real quick washes. This paper isn't ideal for watercolor, so bigger washes are better in this case, and try not to brush across it too much because eventually it will sort of become ragged from the addition of so much water and so many big washes. When you're finished adding your enhancing colors, the last thing that you want to do is make sure that you clean up all the watercolor supplies really well. Your watercolor set should get closed and placed back in the cabinet. Your water should get rinsed out and changed for fresh water for the next step of this exercise. Your palette should get scrubbed clean, and your brushes should get rinsed out with cold water at the sink and then placed back in their respective containers up on the front countertop.